Welcome everyone to Transport Fever 2. And in today's video, I want to talk about something that has been a huge topic of conversation since the game's release, and that is the auto replace or automatically replace function for the vehicles, trains, and so forth in the game. The feature seems to be missing, so how do we deal with all of our vehicles and getting them replaced? Or do we need to replace them at all? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to go through a few different menu functions and just show you some of the different ways that you can find your vehicles and find out what their condition is, since it's a little bit different than in the previous Transport Fever game. So first and foremost, if we come in under our line manager, you can see that this is a basic game that I started from 1850 and we're now about 21 years in. So we've got a few lines set up, nothing fancy, but you notice that we don't get to see which vehicles are on these lines as we've been able to see in years past just from this main screen. We have to go to some different places to see that information. And one of those places is under the vehicle manager, which is right next to the line manager. So here we can either select everything and go with all of these, or we can individually check which line we want to look at the vehicles on. So let's say we want to see everything that's on line 1. Well, here they are. So we've got line 1 checked, and you see we've got road vehicle 1 all the way through 21 on this line, and for right now we're still at the horse and carriage. But from this particular screen, we could do a select all and select everything that's on this line and do a mass replace. Okay, or obviously we could come in and just select one or more of them and do a mass replace. And in this case, you would give the options. Right now, again, we're still at horse-drawn carriages, so we don't have a lot of options, but you would have the ability to select what you wanted to replace, and it will tell you that if you just want to replace these 3, it's going to cost you about $57,000. So that's one way that you can replace. But why would you need to do that if you can just automatically replace? Well, that functionality is gone as of the recording of this video. Who knows, maybe they'll add it back by popular demand in a future update, but as of right now, that option simply doesn't exist. So you have a couple of different ways that you can approach this. You can look at it like we've just talked about, either doing a select all for individual lines or multiple lines at one time, or you can individually replace vehicles if you so choose, as we've already seen, or you've got another option, which is to not replace them at all. And the reason that is an okay plan, whereas in the past it would not have been, because in the past, in the first Transport Fever, you would have been in a situation where as soon as the vehicle outlived its useful life, the cost of maintenance would have skyrocketed on you, and it would have definitely not been worth keeping that vehicle on as part of your fleet. But now that doesn't happen. So let's take a look at a few examples of this. And in order to do that, we're going to come down to the vehicle statistics in the bottom right-hand corner and click on that. And we can move this window around a little bit. So we've got several different columns here that we can organize by. But right now, I've simply got them organized by name. And that's because the examples we're going to look at are at the very top. So we're going to start with road vehicle 1. Now, this type of horse-drawn carriage has a lifespan of 15 years whenever you purchase it. And you can find that if you're not familiar with where that's located. You can come in under your line manager, or more specifically, you can go to, let's find one real quick, your depot, and you can go under buy vehicles, and we'll just go to, we'll say horse-drawn carriage, and it will show you the exact lifespan. In this case, it is 15 years. And it also shows you not only the purchase price of $23,890, but the amount of maintenance and upkeep per year, which is $3,982. In Transport Fever 2, that does not change ever. You can keep this horse-drawn carriage as long as you want to, and it will maintain the same performance. Now, what does change is the emission. Right now, brand new one is at 64. That will slowly increase over time as the condition degrades over the lifespan of the vehicle until it finally goes to, I want to say the horse-drawn carriage is eventually getting to something like 71 or 72. So not a huge increase, about 7 to 9%. increase there, but it never gets more expensive for the upkeep. So it's up to you to decide if you want to keep the line and the vehicles the same or if you want to upgrade them. But if you do decide to upgrade them, you'll have to do so manually. But again, the vehicle manager gives you the ability to choose a lot of vehicles at one time if you want to do them all at one time. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for some different ways of making that happen. And one of those ways is through the vehicle statistics that we began to look at. So road vehicle 1, if we click on it and go to details, you can see that emission is 66, condition is mediocre. So we're at 61% because this one is 5 years old right now. So the age will tell you the condition, and it will also begin to affect the emissions, but it will not affect the running costs. You can see the running costs are still exactly the same, $3,982. And then if we want to manage the vehicle, we can come in and you see that it's already selected for us if we wanted to replace it or something along those lines. Now, if we come down to road vehicle 2, so road vehicle 1 is pretty standard practice. As soon as we got to 15 years, I simply replaced that particular horse-drawn carriage. But we come to road vehicle 2, we click on it, go to details. You notice that condition is mediocre, but maintenance is high. That's because I've changed the maintenance. You can see it here under vehicle statistics to high. That's costing me now $4,978, which is 25% higher than the default. So what do I get for that? What does that do for me? Well, it will take my condition from something like very bad, which you see several examples of here under the condition for our road vehicles, back to something like mediocre, and it will lower the emissions. Why are the emissions important? Well, the emissions begin to affect the growth of the cities. So if your emissions get too high, it stunts the growth of the cities and, of course, is going to hurt your ability to make money in the long term. Now, how much does it hurt it? How much does having very bad condition versus very good change it? Well, there's still a lot of testing to be done to find that out. I haven't seen a great deal of difference between the two conditions or 3 or 4 different types of conditions, but I'm still very early in the testing, so it's not really possible for me to tell you for sure right now what role it plays. But at this point, I'm not sure it's worth the additional maintenance. So here we're paying $4,978 to get it back up to mediocre and keep those emissions down lower. But if we come down to vehicle 3, you notice that maintenance on it is very high and the condition is very good. But let's take a look and see what that's costing us. Again, we come back to the detail screen. Emissions, 64. So the lowest we've seen so far. Condition is very good. Maintenance is very high, but look how much that's costing us. $5,973, a full 50% higher than the default amount if we just left the maintenance on normal. So you're going to have to determine if that's worth it to you. Personally, it has not been worth it to me so far because I've not seen a huge difference in emissions. Possibly as technology advances and time moves on in the game and we get to some different types of trains and aircraft and things like that, maybe it will be a big enough difference to think seriously about the additional maintenance being worth it. However, for right now, I'm just not seeing it in the game. So that's how it works for replacing vehicles in the game. Again, we might see the auto replace feature make a comeback. I certainly spent a lot of time since I purchased the game trying to figure out where it was, but finally come to the conclusion that they've removed it for a different system where you can feasibly keep the same vehicles for a long time beyond their normal usage. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned for more Transport Fever 2.